obviously everyone to what is now our third week of the fall webinar series. We're fortunate to have Walker Bargmann from Eagle Ridge and Jonathan Pazen from Dakota Ridge this evening, who will talk about student voice and exploring pathways of incorporating students in cultivating a positive school environment, both inside and outside of student government. So Walker, Jonathan, if you guys are ready, everyone's eagerly awaiting, so I'll turn the floor over to you.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you so much. Just right away, thank you for the introduction. Once again, I'm Jonathan Pazen, a senior at Dakota Ridge. I use he, him, his pronouns, and today I'll be presenting on how student voice is important outside of student government. And if Walker would like to introduce himself now as well.
Yeah, thank you for all coming today. We're really excited to get going. My name is Walker Bargmann. I use he, him pronouns, and I will be talking about student voice within student organizations. We are going to get going today with just a really quick round of Pictionary. You know, we've had it's almost at the end of the day. We need to take some time, just do a quick icebreaker, and I'm going to paste the link in the chat. So all you need to do is just click the link that I'm gonna put in there. It's gonna take you to a website. You're gonna enter your nickname, and we'll play just a really quick round, get things going.
And as you guys click that link, I'm going to stop screen sharing so that way you guys can go back to this main screen, and let's do this.
If there are any of you who are calling in, I apologize. We'll be done soon. Yes, I see some of you guys are joining. That's great. You can enter whatever nickname you want. It does not matter. All right, it looks like we have just about everyone in. If you aren't in quite yet, that's all right. You will join as we go. And it looks like I'm the artist up first, so I'm going to draw. And you guys just type in whatever you think I'm drawing. All right, if you did not get that, that was beak. All right, we are all done getting our brains working. If you are not already, go ahead and exit out. Come on back from our Pictionary game and we'll get going with the rest of the webinar.
Okay, so hopefully you guys are coming back from Pictionary, and congrats to all the people who won. Nice job. It was a very tough game of Pictionary. But moving on, we have another wonderful icebreaker because we think that icebreakers are really important to helping out in student voice. So this one is a little bit more related to kind of our overarching topics and things like that. So what we can do is, once again, we're going to be typing in a little link into the chat, and that'll take us to a Padlet. Now, if you haven't used a Padlet before, what we're going to do is have some questions for you guys. Just focus on the column titled Icebreaker number 2, and then just type in your name as the title and your response down below. Simple as that. And Walker, do you have the link by chance?
Yes, I am. And as a reminder, we're going to be doing these questions throughout the webinar. So you'll see the questions come up on slides, and then we'll ask you guys to head over to this link and type in your answers.
Walker, I think that might be the Pictionary link that you just pasted in.
Interesting. My bad, guys. Here's the right link. That was the Pictionary link. There we go. All right. Now let's get going. As a friendly reminder, guys, type into the chat box if you guys have questions. Let us know if we need to make anything more clear or if you just want us to expand on something. We will absolutely do that. Just let us know. You can unmute yourself too. We have no preference. That's still the drawing one. I'm so sorry, guys. Okay, we're off to a rough start here. We'll get it going. There we go. We got the Padlet one in there. Thank you for pointing that out, Caden. With that, John, if you want to take it over to the first Padlet question.
Yes, here, I'm gonna hop over to that on our little slideshow, hopefully. If you guys can see that all right. Here we go. Okay, still not quite there. Maybe? Did it work out?
I don't know why it's doing this.
Oh gosh, okay. Here, I can try a little pasting it in.
No, the Padlet should be working now.
Fingers crossed. Okay, it's
Yeah,
working.
we
got the go ahead from the chat. Thank you so much. Well, as you guys head over, here is a little preview on my screen that I'm screen sharing. Here's just our icebreaker. And an example is I put my name up top, and the most memorable part of my week is this conference right away. Hopefully we start getting into it. But as you go along, you're just gonna press this plus button down at the column and then type away. Oh, still not quite working for some people, however.
Apologize about that, guys. It was working beforehand. We don't know what's going on with this finicky technology. If there's one thing I've learned from online school, it is not. Technology will fail. If you are on your phone, it might not work. If you are on a computer, that would be best. If you are on a phone, we'll just, interesting. We're just gonna skip the Padlet for today, guys. We're gonna get into the meat of the webinar then. Go ahead and continue on, John.
Okay, that is all good. You know, technology, we have to adapt to what's happening. So Walker, feel free to take it away with the rest of our presentation then.
Yeah, of course. I'm going to be talking about student voice within our councils. From the glossary of the education reform, they define student voice as referring to the values, opinions, beliefs, perspectives, and cultural backgrounds on individual students and groups of students in a school, and to the instructional approaches and techniques that are based on student choices, interests, passions, and ambitions. So in essence, it just encapsulates everything about students. All right, here's just a quick overview of our webinar. If you want to take a look at that really fast, you know what you're going to get yourself into. And now let's get going. Again, I apologize about all those technical issues, but we've got them worked out now, so let's get going. And something that I really want to talk about is elevating student voice of our student leaders within our organizations. And if you want to go ahead and go to the next slide, John. Here's our Padlet question. I'm just going to talk about this. We're not going to answer it unless it is working for your link. Why do some student leaders hold back their voices? I think there's a variety of reasons why this is. The main issue that I have found is confidence. Go ahead and go to the next slide, John. I've been in student council for quite a few years now, and a lot of times students just feel like they don't have the capability to, they want to say their voice, they want to say their opinion, but they aren't quite ready to. But there are some subtle ways to help this, and you can go ahead and go to the next one. But first, let's identify some common areas of friction, specifically with new members versus old members, right? New members can feel pretty overwhelmed when they get into student council, student senate, whatever you call it. They can feel pretty overwhelmed. It's a lot to take in. There's a lot of kids. Usually there's a lot of older kids. And if you're a freshman, that can be pretty overwhelming. Not only that, but returning members also forget to slow down. I mean, I've done my junior year with homecoming. That was my third year doing homecoming. I could probably plan homecoming and do the framework by myself and get it going, right? And I'm sure that there are a lot of us here who probably feel the same way. But we need to remember that we need to slow down because this is a great teaching moment for our newer members who are joining us. And of course, there's the traditional, I'm not qualified. I'm this new member, or I'm not experienced on this topic. My voice doesn't matter, but that's obviously not true, right? You can go ahead and go over. So here's some simple, subtle ways that you can promote voices in your student councils. Saying your pronouns is something that I'm still getting used to. As you heard at the beginning, me and John both said our pronouns. If you can, this is such a great way to emphasize individuality within our councils. It sets that standard of respect among a group of people. And if we set that standard from the beginning, it's going to create a safe environment and people are going to want to speak. If you're in a safe environment, you feel safe to speak. And that's key, making sure that we're emphasizing our voices, right? And of course, icebreakers, our little Pictionary game there at the beginning, it gets people engaged, it gets people thinking. But also meaningful icebreakers is probably more important than just playing Pictionary. Team bonding is so important with this, because if you know people, if you know your surroundings, again, you're going to feel safe. You're going to feel like you want to be heard. And that's important. It's important to have meaningful icebreakers where you are forcing your students to get to know each other almost. And of course, meeting norms. This is something that we do at the beginning of the year. We have each student council member go around and they contribute one idea, which is called a meeting norm. A meeting norm is just a rule or a guideline that we write down and we have our students follow every time we have a meeting. So that way we can create an environment of respect when we go into our meetings. It also creates productivity and it helps elevate voices. Go ahead and go on. Now, my personal favorite way to elevate voices is leadership lessons, because this gives the opportunity to student leaders to directly give lessons that shows their specific voice. These lessons investigate matters of leadership. They can be in a variety of mediums. I would consider these webinars types of leadership lessons. You know, they can be TED Talks, they can be games, they can be activities, anything that allows student leaders to express their individual form of leadership. For example, just last year, I did this thing called directional leadership, where people explored what types of leaders there are. There are 4 types of leaders that we distinguished among our group. And then we actually used that throughout the year to ensure that we had different kinds of leaders within our committees, to ensure that we got all kinds of different voices. We've got all kinds of different minds working on projects, and that ensures productivity as well. And lessons by new leaders are super important. If you have new members in your council, leadership lessons by our new members are often some of the best that we see. And so make sure we're encouraging. Encouragement is a big factor in getting people to do their leadership lessons. All right. Another point I want to talk about is getting comfortable with being uncomfortable. We've all heard, you know, comfort zones. That's something that's a huge issue. But there's a subtle difference between being safe and being comfortable. And I want to talk about that. Safety is when you're feeling protected. It's when you feel included and welcomed. It's the space that you feel like you can be yourself, and this is good. We want this to happen. But when you're comfortable, that's not good. That's the state of being stagnant. If you're comfortable, you're not growing. If I'm on the couch, I'm not doing anything. I'm not making myself better. I'm comfortable, great, but I'm not making myself better, right? So the key here is to set a safe environment, but try to push the comfort zones. Safety is voice elevation, right? And this can be set in a number of different ways. This is often the culture and the positivity that radiates from student government. But being uncomfortable is voice growth. Is key. Safety is the key to voice growth and elevation. I think that there's often a transition between being a new member and being a returning member when you're in student organizations like student government. And when you first come in, you're learning how to be a student leader. You're learning all these new great ways to get involved. But then the next year, you're a returning member, and you need to work as a mentor. You need to elevate the voices of the new members. That is your duty. It's your responsibility to help those people out, right? Something that we do to do this is that we have semester partners. These are like our little buddies for the semester. I'm currently partnered up with a freshman in our council, and he's awesome. It's a great way to bond between seniors and freshmen, sophomores and juniors. It promotes inclusivity, promotes that safe environment that we want in order to provide voice elevation. And they sit next to each other through the whole semester. They give, the older members can give advice to the newer members. It's just a great way to promote the inclusivity, that welcoming feeling of, hey, I'm wanted to be here. People want me here. And that's what we want to happen. That's what's going to give the recipe for voice elevation. We also just implemented this thing called family groups, which it's not, it's your group together with people who are not your semester partners. It's about 4 or 5 individuals of different grade levels. And again, it's the same as the other thing. It's like, this is your family group. This is your buddy for the whole year. You get to work with these people. You get to bond with these people. It makes you feel like you're welcomed, like people want you there. And that's, again, you know, you see a common theme here is setting up safety for students. But there's a fine line here that we have to take into effect, is this word called cliques. It's forming little groups within our councils. We need to make sure that this doesn't happen, because if cliques form, it undermines everything that you've set up. If you want to set up a safe environment, cliques are going to undermine that. So keep in mind ways to make sure that everybody is still remaining, you know, connected to each other outside of their semester partners and family groups.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Walker. And now we're going to transition into talking about student voice outside of student council. Now, this is just as important within your student council, your government, whatever you may call it, because of course, the voices of these student representatives, these people within student government are going to be valuable, but so too are the voices of your entire student body. And implementing methods that allow your student body to have their voices heard may be difficult, because within student government or student council, you have these really close ties with all of these individuals, but taking it one step further and implementing those changes within the student body as a whole is really daunting sometimes. So we're gonna go over some quick topics on how you might be able to do that. But first, I just wanted to give a little context and historical, a little sense to ground student leadership and student activism. And this example takes place right here in Colorado. In Denver in the 1960s and 70s, there was a really awesome example of student voice where students took their beliefs and actions and created actual change. And I know that within high school, we often feel as though our voices aren't heard, or we don't necessarily have the power to implement these changes. However, by creating safe spaces, by creating these changes within our schools, we can influence the world around us. For example, within the Chicano movement of the 60s and 70s, there were these awesome conferences such as the National Chicano Youth Liberation Conference and walkouts within several high schools, which ultimately unified the movement and created this veritable change within the world. So I think that this is just an awesome reminder that we can really improve the world around us and create change. And then going into, we're just going to skip over this Padlet question. If we want to get to it at the end, that would be awesome. But for now, we're just going to gloss over it. But if you want to keep that in the back of your head, kind of ways that your student council implements student voice, that would be awesome. Now, just getting into some of the big topics that I was hoping to cover. For mostly outside of student council, some really awesome ways that your school can implement student voice is by hosting clubs, activities, and discussions. I know that student council often takes on the role of planning dances and all of these really great ways that promotes school spirit and activism. However, hosting clubs, activities, and discussions is just as important. And then another thing is promoting conferences and events. I know that promotions are also a big part of student council, but treating conferences outside of student council, ones that you not necessarily planned yourself, is also incredibly vital. And then lastly is just creating an inclusive and positive school environment. Walker talked about having these safe spaces where people's voices can really be heard, and creating a positive school environment really goes hand in hand with having the safe spaces for student voices to be heard. And then moving on to some of the clubs and activities, here's just a quick list of some of the really great clubs and activities that a school can kind of have. And I know that within student government, you don't necessarily have the necessary power to create and implement these clubs, but I would argue that if there's a passion for implementing these clubs, you can 100% go to your admin, go to a sponsor and create these clubs, because they are really, really valuable in having open discussions. Some of these include student voice, administration, student relationships, which I feel are really important to have not only your student council's voice heard, but that of those around you. Other activities include political clubs where you can have discourse. Mental health and wellness is a really big one for me personally, as I feel as though that issue is very, very pertinent to modern students. So just having these clubs and activities allows students to find an outlet for them to have discussions, voice their opinions in a safe and moderated area. And that can allow students to really promote their own voice and promote a better environment of your school as a whole. And then another big topic that I wanted to cover in promoting student voice outside of student council is that of conferences and events. Now, your school doesn't necessarily need to be hosting one of these events to have it be important to your student body. You would be amazed by how many conferences and events go on outside of school. I know that sometimes we can kind of have tunnel vision in our planning of events and whatnot. However, there is this ginormous world around us that's also planning these awesome activities. So promoting those and allowing your student body to be informed, which allows them to possibly go to these meetings, go to these conferences, and become more informed on topics that they're passionate about, is just as important as promoting events that your student council is hosting at their home school. And then lastly, if it loads over, actually, excuse me, just going back, here are some awesome links that you can utilize if you'd like to either screenshot this, or most of these links are pretty Googleable. Here's just a quick list of links that have either conferences themselves or have information on having these safe discussions and promoting student voice. For example, that last one, Guidelines for Creating a Safe Space for Discussion. It's a really awesome article that talks about some of the norms that Walker talked about, and then the other ones are mostly conferences that happen. So feel free to check that out if you're willing. And then now we'll go over to the last big topic of creating an inclusive and positive school environment. Now, this is definitely one of the more challenging ways to implement student voice. Creating a culture and changing a culture within your school is a very, very difficult task. But my piece of advice is that it starts with you, right? Sometimes we can get so caught up in how difficult changing 1,000+ students' perspectives are. But at the end of the day, the change starts with you and your perspective on your school. I think as student leaders, we need to go into these clubs and activities, our daily life, with a positive outlook. And that outlook is contagious and ultimately will spread to other individuals. So I think that the first step for any change is having that change be within yourself. Additionally, I felt as though a big thing that is often overlooked within student council is the other clubs and activities that happen around your school. And I argue that teaming up with these clubs and activities and hosting events across multiple different groups is incredibly powerful in promoting unity. Whether it be partnering up with your National Art Society to do some sort of mural or student project, or teaming up with some of your student voice-based organizations like Diversity Club or cultural clubs. All of these help promote the event and help build unity within your school, which ultimately builds a better and more positive school environment. And lastly, just a quick little bullet point is plan and coordinate events that help others. Some of these events that your student council plans are awesome. They help with school spirit and things like that. But another huge aspect is planning events that maybe might help students in other ways, such as promoting mental health or these larger issues, which depending on how they are received, could really help students gain that positivity in their school, that the school is there to support them, that the school is there to help and provide those forms of assistance when they really need it. So just having that faith between the school and students really allows for students to have a more positive outlook on the school as a whole. Perfect. And then once again, I'm not sure if we want to test out this Padlet question as the quick little conclusion, Walker. What are your opinions on that?
It looks like Kiri was able to get the link to work. If you guys look in the chat now, it is the most recent link. Go ahead, click it. If it works for you, fill out the questions. If it doesn't, let's have Jonathan go over to and share his screen so that way everybody can get a view of it in case it doesn't work on their screen.
Okay, so as I pull it up on my screen, hopefully you guys can see that. I think we're gonna brush past our little icebreaker. And which question should they answer, Walker?
How about let's go straight to the end. You know, we're at the end of the conference. Let's see what we can take away from learning about student voice. Let's see how we can apply some of these things.
Perfect. So as you guys kind of type into the chat, we just wanted to utilize this Padlet so that unfortunately kind of went astray at the beginning, but we hoped that you guys can utilize this Padlet to look back at this conference and have these ideas kind of centralized and summarized so that you guys can take it back to your home school. Just taking a quick glance at some of the questions and some of the ideas. If you like them or think that you can implement them, feel free to try and pitch it to your home council. I think that's what these conferences are all about, is improving your home school and improving your community.
Yes, I can paste that chat again. All right. Hopefully that one works. I just sent it again, Sam. And if any of you feel inspired to fill out any of the other questions, please do. Again, this is a resource for you guys to look at, to use. If you look at question number 3, you guys can bounce ideas off of each other. Just make this yours. Take a couple more minutes and then we'll turn it back over to Justin. All right, well, go ahead and continue to type in your answers. Again, look back at this as often as you want save the link for it. We are all done. We appreciate you guys bearing with us during our technical issues. But thank you guys for coming. Again, my name is Walker Bargmann. My pronouns are he, him, his. And see you guys later.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Great job, you two.
Great job, guys.
Nicely done, everybody.